Here's something that's going to make you genuinely angry. Your air conditioner is running right now, burning electricity, cycling on and off all afternoon, fighting as hard as it can, and it's losing. Not because it's undersized, not because your insulation is bad, it's losing because of what's sitting 4 feet above your bedroom ceiling doing absolutely nothing useful. Your attic. And for about $80 and one afternoon of your time, you can fix the exact problem that's been inflating your cooling bill for every summer you've lived in that house. The residential air conditioning industry has known about this fix since at least 1976. They buried it anyway. We're going to cover the physics, the history, and the exact build, and by the end of this, you'll understand why the cheap solution always works better than the expensive one. Let's start with what's actually happening up there. A standard asphalt shingle roof absorbs somewhere between 85 and 95% of incoming solar radiation. Every photon that hits that dark surface converts directly into heat energy and conducts down through the roof deck into the cavity below. By mid-morning on a normal July day, attic temperatures are already climbing past 120 degrees. By early afternoon, they're parked at 130, 140, sometimes pushing 150 degrees or higher depending on your climate and roof color. That's not an exaggeration. That's what thermometers in real attics actually read. And that heat pool just sits there for hours, radiating down through your ceiling drywall and into every room below it all day, every day, for the entire cooling season. Now here's the part that should genuinely bother you. Most homeowners think their attic insulation is solving this problem. It isn't. What R30 fiberglass bats actually do is slow the rate of heat transfer from the attic into your living space. Slow, not stop. The heat is still moving through, it's just moving slightly more slowly. Meanwhile, the attic itself never cools down because the insulation is also blocking the only exit the heat had, downward into the house. You've essentially insulated a thermal battery that charges in the morning and keeps radiating into your home well into the evening after the sun goes down. The insulation your builder put in is trapping the problem, not solving it. And it gets worse when you look at where your ductwork runs. In roughly 78% of American homes, the supply and return ducts for the central air conditioning system run directly through the attic. Even when those ducts are wrapped in R6 or R8 insulation, you're pushing conditioned air your compressor just paid good money to cool, through a cavity that sits at 140 or 150 degrees. That cold air absorbs heat through the duct walls before it ever reaches the room you're trying to cool. The Department of Energy has measured this efficiency loss at between 15 and 30% in attic-mounted systems, so your air conditioner is fighting on two fronts simultaneously: the heat that's radiating down through the ceiling and the heat it's losing from the ducts before the cold air arrives. Your contractor's solution to this problem is almost always to install a bigger unit, a bigger compressor, more tonnage, higher monthly operating cost. Money flows toward the industry, and your attic stays at 150 degrees. The actual fix is so simple it's almost offensive. Your attic needs an exit. Hot air accumulates up there because there's nowhere for it to go fast enough. Most homes have soffit vents at the eaves and maybe a ridge vent or gable vent at the peak, but passive ventilation alone can't move air fast enough to break the thermal soak during peak solar hours. What you need is active airflow, physically exhausting the hot air out of the attic faster than the sun can replace it. That's the entire job of a solar attic fan, and the physics of how it does that job is almost too elegant. A solar attic fan is a small photovoltaic panel wired directly to a brushless exhaust motor with wide fan blades, mounted under a domed roof, flashing. No battery, no grid connection, no thermostat required in the basic version. The panel makes electricity when the sun hits it, which is precisely when your attic is building heat. The duty cycle is self-regulating. More sun means more heat buildup, which means more solar output, which means the fan spins harder and moves more air. The system's peak demand and its peak power supply happen at exactly the same moment every single day, automatically, for free. The numbers behind the airflow are worth locking in. A 20-watt photovoltaic panel paired with a quality exhaust motor will move between 800 and 1,200 cubic feet of air per minute. The total volume of a standard attic above a 1,500 square foot home sits around 3,000 cubic feet. Run the math, and that fan is turning over the entire air volume in your attic every 2.5 to 3 minutes. Every 3 minutes, the 150-degree air that was cooking above your ceiling is replaced with fresh outdoor air pulled in through your soffit vents. After about 10 minutes of operation on a hot afternoon, the attic temperature stabilizes at a fundamentally different level. Field measurements from the Florida Solar Energy Center showed peak attic temperatures dropping 40 to 50 degrees on homes with solar fan installations compared to unvented baselines. That 150-degree oven above your bedroom becomes a 100 to 110-degree cavity instead. Still warm, but no longer a radiant heat source dumping energy into your living space for 8 straight hours. Some people hear this and immediately ask about whirlybird turbine vents. They're cheaper, they spin. What's the difference? The difference is that a whirlybird only moves air when wind is blowing across its blades. On the hottest afternoons of summer, the exact conditions where your attic is at its worst, the wind across most suburban neighborhoods is running between 0 and 3 miles per hour. The whirlybird sits still. It's a piece of decorative metal on your roof during peak hours. A solar fan doesn't care about wind at all. The hotter and brighter the day, the harder it runs. Studies comparing the two technologies directly put solar attic fans at roughly 3 times the airflow of a passive turbine averaged across a typical summer afternoon, and that gap widens significantly on calm days when the turbine stops moving entirely. Now let's talk about the history, because this isn't new information. In 1976, the California Energy Commission was writing what became Title 24, the first statewide building energy efficiency code in the country. Early drafts included mandatory active attic ventilation requirements for new construction in cooling-dominated climates. The engineering case was solid. Active ventilation cuts cooling load by roughly 15% across the housing stock. Less cooling demand means fewer peaker plants the state has to build. The math worked at scale. The proposal hit a wall in the public comment period when the lobby representing the residential air conditioning industry stepped in. Their argument was accurate and commercially devastating to their members. If active ventilation reduced cooling loads, the sizing methodology contractors use to specify equipment, a tool called Manual J, would have to be revised downward. Smaller, less expensive air conditioners would be required for the same homes. Average ticket size for every installation in the country would compress. Title 24 passed in 1978 without the active ventilation requirement. Manual J still doesn't account for solar attic fan systems in its cooling load calculations today. Every contractor sizing your replacement air conditioner is still assuming a 150-degree attic above your ceiling for the life of the equipment. Then in 1989, the Florida Solar Energy Center ran a controlled study and put hard numbers on what was being suppressed. Solar attic ventilation on test homes in Central Florida reduced peak cooling load by 12 to 20% depending on roof configuration. The researchers estimated that retrofitting a third of single-family homes in hot climates would defer construction of 3 to 5 gigawatts of peak generation capacity nationally. Billions of dollars in infrastructure that ratepayers would never have to fund. The study was peer-reviewed, it was accurate, it was funded by a federal energy program. And then it went nowhere because there was no commercial mechanism to push it into practice, and the industry that controlled the distribution channels had no interest in shrinking its own market. That's the context you're working inside of. The fix has existed for nearly 5 decades. It's just never been in anybody's financial interest to tell you about it. The good news is that you don't need their permission. Here's how the installation actually works. Start with a quality, complete kit: panel, motor, fan, and dome flashing together. Decent kits run between $80 and $200 at hardware stores or online depending on wattage. Sizing is simple. 1 fan per 1,500 square feet of attic floor area covers most single-story homes. Larger homes or complicated roof lines benefit from 2 fans on opposite slopes. Pick a spot on the south-facing slope of your roof, in the upper third of the roof surface, so the fan is exhausting the hottest stratified air near the ridge. Locate two adjacent rafters, which are typically 16 or 24 inches apart. Mark a square between them, score around the perimeter with a utility knife to cut through the shingles cleanly, then cut through the roof deck with a circular saw set just deep enough to clear the plywood. Slide the upper edge of the dome flashing up under the row of shingles above the cut. Lay the lower edge on top of the shingles below. Nail the flange down and seal the perimeter. Mount the fan dome over the flashing collar, connect the motor leads to the panel leads, and the system is live. Total installation time with a little practice is under 2 hours for one person. Before you button anything up, spend 5 minutes with a flashlight in your attic confirming the soffit vents at the eaves are clear and open. The fan can only exhaust air at the rate that intake air replaces it from below. Insulation pushed over the soffit baffles or vents painted shut during a re-roof will starve the fan and burn out the motor. A $12 soffit baffle kit per opening solves it permanently. The optional thermostat add-on, typically a $15 upgrade on most kits, shuts the fan off once the attic drops below 90 degrees. In cold climates, this matters. You don't want to be ventilating a hot attic in January. In warm climates, it's less critical because the panel only produces power when the sun is up anyway, but the thermostat refines the system. You can verify the results yourself with a basic infrared thermometer pointed at your bedroom ceiling on the first hot afternoon after installation. Before the fan, that ceiling surface reads between 85 and 95 degrees by 4 in the afternoon. After, the same measurement on the same ceiling comes in 10 to 15 degrees lower during the same window. Your air conditioner starts cutting off earlier in each cooling cycle. That's the thermal soak breaking in real time, visible from inside your own house, paid for by sunlight. 50 years of industry lobbying kept this off the table. One summer afternoon, and $80 puts it back on yours. The attic above you has been an unopened oven your whole cooling season. Now you know how to crack the door.